What does it take to be a game developer? Is it a 30-inch 4K 200Hz monitor, an $800 graphics card, or a laptop from the side of the street? I have been a full-time indie game developer since the middle of 2023, and I have studied game development since 2019. Through the last 5 years, I have honed my craft into a set of tools and workflows that I use on a daily basis to not just create games, but create content around the development of a game. I hope by the end of this video, you will have an informed opinion on some of the software and hardware used for game development and get you started on your own journey. For every project that I have worked on, I have used the Unity game engine. Unity at this point is a veteran status game engine. Having first been released in 2005, Unity has paved the way for game developer accessibility and popularity. I use Unity for my day job as well as my personal projects. It's a tool that I have become extremely familiar with. So it may seem like I'm biased to say this, but this is the #1 engine I recommend to every beginner game developer. In 2022, approximately 750,000 games that were released were created in the Unity engine. It has been around for so long that the overall accessibility from the engine is sort of unmatched. There is pretty much a tutorial for every aspect of the engine, and not to mention the programming side. Coding in Unity is done entirely through C#, and not only being one of the most popular coding languages, but pretty much every question about coding in Unity has been answered at some point in an online forum or a tutorial has been made from it. So your resources through use of this engine is pretty limitless. Speaking of coding, when I code in Unity, I use Visual Studio as my programming environment. Visual Studio is probably the most stock standard, straightforward, out-of-the-box coding environment for game developers, whether you use Unity, Godot, or Unreal Engine, with complete support for game development. I use the One Dark Pro theme as I find it a little bit more aesthetic, but I tend to gravitate towards any of the darker themes as it's a lot easier on the eyes. But there are heaps of customizable options that exist and are pretty fun to mess around with. As far as coding environments go though, Visual Studio Code is another really great option. And if it had better support for Unity, then that would most likely be my go-to. Now, I have been doing this for over 5 years. In fact, my coding journey began as far back as 2013. But certain coding patterns or syntax or practices, I don't know at the top of my head. So I use tools like ChatGPT to fill the gaps in my knowledge for certain coding problems. It's extremely important when using AI tools that you use it in a productive way that is beneficial to your own learning, not as a way to do the job for you. Sometimes I ask ChatGPT a question and it'll provide me an answer, but sometimes I'll look at the answer and think, okay, that's how you do it. Or I'll think, this guy has no idea what he's saying and that solution is going to cause more problems than solve them. Knowing when and when not to use a tool like ChatGPT will make all the difference when you're learning. Now, another really important tool for when I'm coding is a good keyboard. It might sound silly, but as someone who is behind a screen majority of the day, a good sounding ergonomic keyboard can really improve my productivity. I've gone through a series of multiple keyboards and I've found that the Keychron K10 Pro to be the best of all of them. It's extremely responsive, sounds great, has a lot of customizable support, and price-wise really won't set you back too much, retailing for around 150 to 180 Australian dollars, which compared to something like the Razer Black Widow Pro, which I used prior to this keyboard, is around double the price at about 360 Australian dollars. Now, a good keyboard is nothing without a good monitor, and like a true gamer, I use 2 monitors. When I'm working on my game, having a second monitor means I can have the code open on one screen and the editor open on the other. Now, this isn't completely necessary, but it does help when it comes to working. When I had a single monitor, there were a few times when I was coding where I would forget something and have to keep tabbing in and out of the editor, which definitely slowed me down at some points. Now, I actually want to highlight that for the last month, I have been using BenQ's RD280U programming monitor. BenQ is a brand I'm pretty familiar with, having used the BenQ Zowie way back when I first started programming, and I was offered an opportunity to partner with them with their new programming monitor. I want to preface that although I'm partnered with BenQ, my thoughts and opinions are my own. This is a completely unbiased review. To begin, I'll admit I was a bit skeptical at the idea of a programming monitor, but within the first day of using it, I gotta say I was sold. The capabilities of the monitor really impressed me, and once I understood the extent of the support it has for programming, I found myself more productive and more in tune with my work. The features are super simple to set up, and from someone who normally just whips a monitor out of the box, plugs it in, and never touches another button on it, I find myself taking advantage of the RD280U's functionality every day. and this monitor has quickly climbed my list of useful tools. As a programmer and content creator whose work extends out of the regular 9 to 5, eye care is extremely important to me. And this monitor features a low light eye care filter through blue light support, night hour protection, and auto dimming features, which I seriously think should just be a standard with monitors now. But since using it, I can already feel that my endurance in front of a screen has improved. I'm able to sit comfortably without getting tired or getting headaches, meaning more time for me to create. Now the features with this monitor are pretty limitless, and with that does come a higher cost, but you do get what you pay for. Some features include a built-in backlight, multiple connection support, a function bar, which let's face it, is just cool regardless, and even just the sheer 3:2 ratio is extremely impressive. There's countless more features and customizable possibilities, so I've included a link to this product in the description of this video. So if you're a programmer, then this is definitely something to think about picking up for this holiday season. On that note, BenQ are running a Christmas and Boxing Day promotion starting on December 1st with 30% off selected items. The link for that is on the screen and in the description of this video. I want to say a big thank you to BenQ for this monitor and for supporting this channel. Now let's talk computers. I'm using the MSI Alpha Trident, which was a pre-built PC from MSI which I got back in 2020, and I seriously have never had an issue with this. Whether it's game development, general gaming, or just everyday use, this computer has not failed me, but it was a little bit on the pricey end. And a computer with such high specs isn't really necessary, especially if you're just getting into game development. I also use a 2020 MacBook Pro for all of my game development needs, and that for me suits it just fine. And okay, I understand a MacBook is obviously a bit high-end as well, but for context, when I first started game development, I used a $300 HP laptop that did everything for me. So my point here is a focus on RAM or storage or quality isn't an amazing indication for what you can or can't do in game development. Sure, it might compile your code quicker, but what you can do on a $5,000 computer isn't going to differ too much from a $1,000 computer. There are a lot more factors to consider, like the type of game you're making, the engine you plan on using, and the overall size and scope of your game. So if your question is, can my computer run it? Most likely yes. So I wouldn't get too hung up on those details if you're looking to get into game development and stuck on the hardware to use. Now, I would argue the most important tool for all of software is No, let's be real, it's a good coffee machine. Every night when I go to bed, the one thing that gets me out of bed the next morning more than anything is knowing I can make myself a coffee. A nice smooth coffee, and I know it's gonna be a lovely Sorry about that. What I meant to say was version control. For me, I use a combination of Fork and GitHub to maintain all of my repositories, code, and branches. If you don't know what version control is, I made a video on it a few months back, but in short, it's a way to effectively store all your project's contents in a managed location. You can restore old versions of a project, remove active changes, and it's probably the easiest way to actively collaborate on the project with multiple people. Needless to say, it's useful, and I use it for literally all of my projects, no matter the size. And if there's going to be any takeaway from this video, it's to use version control. On that note, organization and planning is an extremely important way to stay on track of your projects. I have used a few things in the past, Miro, Notion, Jira, but the one for me that just comes so naturally is Trello. Trello is a visual collaboration tool that helps organize projects, manage workflows, and track progress. Whenever I start to get a bit overwhelmed in a project, or if the scope increases in a project and there's lots of tasks that I need to keep track of, the first thing that I do is just create a new Trello board. This is something I have been doing since 2019, and even while I was at uni, got into the practice of using for my day-to-day tasks outside of programming. Now, the final thing I want to touch on is some software that I use for art. If you've seen my channel, you'll know I'm a stickler for pixel art, and there's seriously no better solution for me than Sprite. Sprite is extremely easy and straightforward to use and actually has a lot of tooling support from Unity, meaning the integration from creating a design in Sprite to saving it as an immediate asset to use in Unity is already set up through a free package from Unity. I covered it in a video not too long ago, but it has had some massive updates since then. So let me know down in the comments if you want to see a full tutorial on it. So there's the tools I use. Now, before I wrap up, I just want to say that whatever the tool is that you're using, whether that's the computer or monitor, whatever it is, there is definitely some validity in how it can help you, but ultimately, you are not limited by your tools. Manage your expectations, be realistic with your tool set, but know that what you create is dependent on you as the developer. Just take a look at this setup. This is how Stardew Valley was made. Anyway, Thanks for watching today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any thoughts or want to share some stuff that you use, then definitely leave a comment down below. I know this community will benefit heaps from more opinions and perspectives. Thanks again, and I'll catch you all in the next video.